Many know him more for his distinguished career that spans over 20 years in the financial services sector, for pioneering the development and commercialization of Mshwari, Loop, and leading digital banking at NCBA Group. What many might not know is that Eric Muriuki, the NCBA Group Director, Digital Business and Chief Executive Officer, Loop DFS, is an ardent cyclist and a fast-fading footballer. In this episode, Muriuki and I talk about his childhood, taking up various sports in Nairobi School and JKUAT, taking up football after college, a sport that he still plays to this day, and how a knee injury forced him to start cycling. We also talk about how the Loop Safari Gravel series is faring in its second year and its impact on the efforts to have a cycling culture in Kenya. Oh, and he also tells me what it is like to be turning 50 this year. This is Words on Wellness with Kenyan Poet. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Words on Wellness with Kenyan Poet. And today I am joined by the NCBA Group Director, Digital Business and Chief Executive Officer, Loop DFS. That's quite a mouthful. Quite. Eric Muriuki. Karibu sana, Eric.
Asante, Jerry.
It's great to have you here on the podcast. And I'm sure that, being on a podcast like this is not something that, you're used to, because it's mostly a lot of the shows that you do and public appearances are usually talk about financial services.
Yes.
But
of course, so much easier to talk about work. Yeah.
Yes, but today we will not be talking about work as much. We'll mostly be talking about what most don't know you for, because a lot more people know you for your distinguished career in the financial services, which spans over 20 years. I'm sure it's over 20 years.
25 actually.
That's a long time.
Yes,
that's
going this is the 25th year.
There's someone who's watching this video, who watch this video and be like, I'm not that old.
I'm not 25 years.
Yes. And but last year, I think that's when we met the first time. We met at the Loop Gravel series. Actually, it's this year, at the start of this year, at Tattoo City.
Yeah.
And
a lot has happened.
Yes?
A lot has happened
since then. I know you're just back from Machakos, which we will talk about shortly.
Yes.
And the Eric that I met at Tattoo City a few months ago is an avid cyclist.
Mm-hmm.
And have you always been an active individual? Because from the way that I saw you, it felt like you've been doing this for ages.
Well, ages, maybe let's put one key start, which I think will help put things in context. I am actually turning 50 this year.
Oh, wow.
And so when you say ages, there's at least 3 or 4 decades of me being active. I think right from childhood, we grew up in a family of 6 in your typical Nairobi estate, where as soon as you can leave the house, immediately you've gone to play with your mates. And the neighborhood had lots of kids at about the same age. So there's always some sort of organized play and all sorts of games, not just sport, but anything and everything. Mm-hmm. So that typical profile of kids running out and coming back in the evening like chicken, completely dirty, that was me. I got to go to high school, very fortunate to go to a really good school, not the one I went to.
Oh, not the one that I was about to complete the sentence of I went to.
Those ones went to a good school. I got a good education. There's a difference.
All right.
So why I say it was a great opportunity is because for the first time I was in a setting with really good sporting facilities. That was a national school. I was at Nairobi School. And each dorm or each house had its own pitch. There was organized and good structure to sport. And pretty much if you were in Nairobi School and didn't play any sport, it's because you really didn't want to. And I learned most games, I was meeting them there for the first time, things like rugby, hockey, having access to a swimming pool. So I think just that opportunity, and also just really enjoying the social side of being in sport, I got myself into everything I could. I was quite fortunate. I made it to the first 15 rugby team. I was swimming for the school. I was decent, sometimes on, other times off the first 11 on hockey. Actually, funny thing about football, I only played football for the first time in a pitch after I finished college.
Oh, wow.
Which is not typical for a usual kid. Yeah, we'll come to that later. But pretty much for me, sport has been something I've done all my life. And particularly since high school, I went to college, also continued in the same. I was at Jomo Kenyatta, JKUAT.
Okay.
And played for the college team, swam for the team, played hockey for the team, and continued. Yeah,
wow. I'm still stuck at you playing over 4 sports at
Nairobi School.
I call it
Patch.
Patch. Does it still use that name?
I think you're giving away where you are.
I know.
Yes.
So, wow, that's quite an active life, and this continued at JKUAT.
At JKUAT, yeah. Yeah, so if anything, I think as time has gotten scarcer, of course, you have to drop some. And I actually started playing football, as I stated, after college. Again, it was social. So mates I knew used to play football every Sunday at Strathmore, and I just followed. I'm still a rubbish footballer. I'm sure anyone who I play soccer with will be surprised if I claimed anything otherwise different from that. But I make up for a lack of talent with effort. So I find my way into the team more out of effort than talent. But of course, football is getting harder at my age. The knees are giving in. But the thing about sport for me and what has made me continue into active sport, football is every Thursday.
You still play?
I played football with the same people since 1999.
Wow.
So it's not about football.
And this is after college, right?
Just after
college.
99, 2000. Same people. That's 25 years.
Are you part of is it a team that you're a part of? Or?
Actually, it's something that's interesting to talk about. It's I play with the Railways Wanderers Football Club.
Okay.
It's the oldest registered football club in East and Central Africa.
I had no idea.
We celebrated 100 years 3 years ago. So we are the same league as, I think, Barcelona was 1923, Liverpool, Arsenal, 19, thereabout.
Okay.
So that's the level we're at.
Wow.
So it's a club that has had a playing unit since for 100 years and going strong. But it's not only about football. We actually say football, fellowship, friendship. And that's the thing that I would say has given me the staying power. So even when the body is saying no, you actually want to meet your mates. It's a Thursday ritual. My lawyer is from that club. My architect is from that club. Almost everything I need beyond just socializing, you find that for me, my sporting circles have become my primary social circles. And similarly to cycling, I think cycling, I would say, I started cycling maybe 8 years ago. A funny story to it, football injury, bad football injury. I went to see a doctor who was supposed to be the best surgeon in the country. We did tests. We had to wait for the swelling to go down, do the MRIs. And when he was ready, his plan was, of course, a surgery. And he assured me at least the best I could do is walk after the surgery.
Wow.
And I asked him, listen, I walked to your clinic, so why should I do a surgery only to be able to walk? So it was like no more jogging. I was 33 at the time.
And that can be quite a blow for someone like you who's been very active.
So actually I walked away from his office. I told him I'll come back later. And I think accepting the idea that the best I can do at the age of 33 is to only walk, that took me time.
Wow.
So I took a friend, actually, the British Army, when they were relocating, or they were doing some sale. So the friend wanted to buy one of their used Land Rovers. So I took him. And they had some bikes they were selling off for 10K or something. So that was my first bike.
And when was this? So that we can sort of have a... Okay.
This was maybe...
But you mentioned you began cycling 8 years ago. Was that around the same time?
8 to 10 years ago.
Okay.
So I bought the bike. I had no intention. It's just fancy looking bike for 10,000 bob.
Okay. But you knew how to cycle then?
Yes. As a kid, of course, we cycled, we did everything.
All right.
So I bought a bike and I started cycling with just around the neighborhood, 2 kilometers today, 5 tomorrow. And of course, at that time, 5, you feel like you've won the Olympics.
Okay, and so let me get this right. Now, the injury that you had, you had the injury.
Yes.
But then with the cycling, you weren't feeling it, or was it?
No. So this, like, I stayed out, did almost nothing for more than a year.
Oh, okay.
So it wasn't even a plan to say, let me use cycling for this. No, I just bought a bike. I don't know why I did. And I started feeling confident with the knee because you could sense when you're going down the stairs, you have to protect the knee. I'd basically torn all my ligaments, all of them, and the meniscus. So the knee completely had no balance and no strength.
Mm-hmm.
But as I started cycling, and there was no structure to it, I was just cycling when I find time. I realized actually the knee is getting stronger, and I don't remember the moment, but I found myself back to football.
Wow.
And
this, you were not even consulting the doctor.
Well, the doctor told me the best that I can do is walk. So I was like, okay, the knee is already gone. Even if I play football now, it's gone. It can't get worse. So probably not the most responsible decision because I still have... There's still notable issues. But I'm back to playing football. I've played actively. And I think it's only now when I'm feeling like, okay, maybe now I should give it a break because after each game, the pain is real. But it's just typical wear and tear. I mean, football is not for old men. Anyone will tell you that.
I'm even impressed that you guys still play.
Yeah, we still.
But I'm really, I resonate greatly with what you've talked about, having an injury and you having to switch from something that you are very passionate about and you not giving up. Because as you were talking, I was smiling because it's the same thing that happened with me last year. I'm an avid runner, recreational runner.
Yes.
But then last year I had an injury still on my knee, on my left knee.
Yes.
And when I went to the doctor, what I was told is that you have weak inner, it's called VMO muscles. And so I was told, no, this one, so you have to stop the very strenuous physical activity. And because running is very high impact, it needs on your body so much. And like any other sport, probably equivalent to football. So I was told the best that you can do is go to the gym with lift weights or walk. That is when I began cycling, and I had not cycled.
Look at you.
I had never learned how to cycle, and so my kids always used to make fun of me because they're like, "Mom, how do you not know how to cycle? What did you do in your childhood?" and so they couldn't believe that when I was growing up, I tried telling them when I was growing up there were no bicycles. Like there was only one bicycle in the village.
Well, we were 6. So, there was one bicycle amongst all of us.
But last year is when I took it up. And so I was actually, what I learned is that just like what you've said, that there's different set of muscles that you start strengthening as part of your whole recovery process and your leg muscles that now aids you in the other sport that you want to play. And so it's really good to hear that.
One other muscle, the mind. So, and particularly in team sports, even cycling, which is it's a strange sport because you first I recommend anyone cycle with others, don't cycle alone. So in some sense, it's a team or it's a club sport, but you're doing it alone. But in football, as I was going through my recovery and even forgot about I'm injured, of course, other mates also get their knee injuries and you see them go through the recovery process and you see the different ways different individuals handle injury or let me call it setbacks and recovery. And you can see that those that actually get back, it's the mind. Right. And they actually get back, not just, it's not like it strengthens the mind, but it actually trains the mind and gives you patterns of how to come back from setbacks, which you can apply in everything. In very many other things in life. So those mental models of, okay, I'm injured, I can't do what I was doing yesterday, but here is a plan. And you have to develop a plan that's your plan. So was sharing notes with a friend of mine who was also having a knee injury at the same time. But his routine was completely different from mine. Mm-hmm. But we joked about it because I know him. We play football together, and you watch anyone playing football, you can tell their character, just how they show up on the pitch is how they show up in life. Mm-hmm. And I could see why his plan is his plan. It can't be my plan. It can't
be yours.
Yeah, but we both have that mentality that I have to go through it. I have to get, if I want to get back, because many fall aside and you see them, you meet up 2 or 3 years later.
Yeah, like resigning to their fate.
Yes,
they just have to accept that this is now what has become of my life.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
And that's really profound because, yes, we all suffer setbacks in life, whether it is through the sports we play or generally life happens. And what you choose to do about it is what determines whether, like how strong you are, how strong-willed you are about facing challenges. I love that. So we've talked about how cycling became your go-to fitness activity. And I've seen that cycling and football have always they're sort of like the predominant physical activities for you right now. Am I right?
It's actually the only thing I do.
Oh, okay.
So play football on Thursdays, cycle on Saturdays.
All right.
I'm trying to, actually I'd set a goal for myself as I was turning 50. I mentioned I'm turning 50 this year, November. Is come November, I want to try and get back to my fitness level of 20 years ago.
That's ambitious.
Very ambitious. But chase something, let it find you. And again, I would say just the sport of cycling has actually taught me that, listen, just set a goal in front of me. I will get there. And you've been cycling now. Cycling can be painful. There's hills to be dealt with. And this is true to life. There's moments when you're cruising down, but you'll pay for it.
There'll be, wherever there's a down, there must be an up.
There must be an up.
Yes.
And as you're suffering going up, you'll get paid for it.
Yes.
There's with the views, and of course the drop is coming. So I would say similarly, yes, ambitious goal, but through sport, I've figured out this is how you set a goal. It won't be easy. It's ambitious. And just get there. But as I've gone through that, I realized actually setting a physical fitness target isn't enough to define wellness. At 50, you should be wiser. So to try and drop some wisdom, I also just thought about, okay, what if I set goals for other profiles of wellness, financial wellness, relationship wellness, social wellness. So it's then by just chasing physical fitness, I realized actually I can use this year to pursue other goals, not away from fitness, but fitness is actually what drives me there. It's what helps me organize, helps me put structure, helps me have staying power, even for these other goals.
Yeah. I love what you've said, because for a lot of us who lead active lifestyles, there is a point where it becomes a form of escape and it becomes an addiction. And
it is. No problem with that, actually.
Yes, but I think my challenges and where I have seen a need to sort of bring a balance is when it becomes too much at the expense of other aspects of your life. And this is something that I've seen with my friends in the running circles, that yes, someone has a family, but then every weekend and every out of town run that is happening, they're there. And so, having that prudence to have that balance is important. But I also love what you've said about, you setting yourself goals on different aspects of your life. And I think I wanted to talk about the effect that these activities that you do, the effect that they've had on your mental well-being, as well as have you seen it trickling down to your career and how you're able to have clarity of mind, make decisions, and deal with the stresses of being a group director.
That mouthful.
I didn't want to say the complete term.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so as I said, for me, the sport, whether it's a sport that is played with some structure like football, 45 minutes, 15 minutes break, back 45 minutes, or cycling where you just go out, sport actually gives you structure. Second, and more so with team sports, and I'll let out a little secret shortly. Team sport also teaches some very interesting things with regards to team dynamics that you can use at work, knowing that today the Oppo is stronger than us, but we have to find a way of winning. Mm-hmm. That's something you bring to life. Knowing that I play at the right back.
Yes.
Number 2. So knowing my number 7, knowing that he is not that quick, or the Oppo he has to deal with is much stronger, I then know I have to show up for him. Or knowing that this guy plays in this way, he receives the ball better in this way, don't give him this ball. Those are things you can bring to
the workplace.
To workplace, even to just your own life. You know how to accept your friend.
Oh, and also in relationships.
Exactly. Don't expect them to show up like you. They're not you. So don't give them a past they can't deal with. So do that at work.
And a lot of us struggle with that, right?
Exactly. And so for me, I think what's been great about my experience with sport is just figuring out I can channel these patterns of play. Mm-hmm. I can challenge them into other parts of my life. Yeah.
All right. Great. So what are some of the factors that have contributed to cycling growing as a lifestyle and a sport in Kenya? Mm. I have seen quite a number of initiatives, and we'll talk about the Loop Safari Gravel series, which, and perhaps we can talk about that and then go into the cycling growing as a lifestyle for many and as a sport in Kenya. Mm-hmm. Loop became the title sponsor for and jointly launched the Loop Safari Gravel series that started last year. Mm-hmm. So I'd like you to talk about that. Why cycling?
3 questions there.
Yes, okay, let's start with, that was a bit of a mouthful. Let's start with why Loop sponsored the Loop Safari Gravel series, okay. Mm-hmm. And it being primarily a cycling event.
Okay.
Yes, so let's start with that.
Yeah, so I think maybe let's deal with the easy stuff.
Yes, let's start with the easy stuff.
There is bias involved. So yes, I cycle a lot, and which just means that I am also very familiar with cycling and the ecosystem enough to know that many Kenyans are actually looking to cycling as an alternative, as a sport, as a thing they do socially. So being in the sport just makes me more aware of what is happening. So it's not just bias. It just means I'm able to make a decision, but I also have very good information about this. Also being in the sport, you realize there's no corporate in this sport. You also get to realize that, particularly for competitive sport, what it takes to excel at cycling is the same thing that it takes to excel at long-distance running. And that's Kenya true. Is naturally endowed in that way. Also, geography matters. And I'll explain why geography. You will see the best road cyclists are in countries that typically have very good tarmac roads and hilly. So no surprise that Kigali, Rwanda is producing very good cyclists. They have good roads, very hilly. No surprise that any pro cyclists, like the guys doing the Tour de France, they are training mans. They have set up their homes in places that have those conditions. Now, we have the hilly conditions. We have altitude. Very we don't have good roads.
I was waiting for you to talk about the roads.
Or even where we have good tarmac roads,
yes,
they are extremely busy. Roads in Kigali or in Rwanda are not. Okay, so it's actually dangerous to say Kenya will want to try and push road cycling, which means get more people on the road. So we actually took the route of get more people on a bike, but off-road, and hence gravel. Okay,
that explains a lot.
Yes, and then again, you can see if I wasn't in the sport, we would not have these insights. And so the brand at the time, Loop is a new brand, is 2 years old. You said we won't talk about Loop.
We will.
Best of luck to get me not to talk about
it
Loop
shortly.
Yeah, so it's a 2-year-old brand. I say 2 years. There's people who've known us longer than 2 years. Very quickly, Loop was a digital banking service. And 2 years ago, 23rd of January, we pivoted from banking. So it's actually not accurate to say Loop is a bank account. Loop is actually a digital platform. And we even switched the brand completely. Of course, some customers who had really come to love the old brand were not too happy with that switch. But we can see we have regained their confidence, and we're seeing, the brand is growing. That's not what we came to talk about today, but just to mention that. So as a brand, we were looking for what we call a brand asset that we can use to engage with our target customers. We saw, and particularly since COVID, very many very many people had started cycling during COVID.
Oh, yes.
As I was saying, my cycling journey started before COVID, but I was completely unserious. It's only during COVID that a club was formed. We started meeting together. Most of the people actually bought their first bike at
during
that time.
The COVID period.
Exactly.
Yes, there was a reawakening. Sorry to cut you short. There was a reawakening around being active. I think it had a lot to do with the curtailed freedoms of movement, and we needed something to sort of deal with all this uncertainty.
And not just freedoms of movement. It wasn't curtailed freedoms. It was the offered time. You had more time than you do today. Actually, there are moments when, of course, COVID was a dark and painful season for almost everyone. But there are moments I miss those COVID days where you have time. And when the last Zoom call ends, it has ended. There are no weddings to go to. There are no these. There's no that. You have time. So anyways, we recognized as a brand that we have an opportunity here. The profile of customers we're targeting, like you, wellness is important to them. And many of them are actually looking to start cycling. Some have already started cycling. And while every other brand is sponsoring golf and...
I was about to say golf, and you beat me to it. Yes. And I think the top ones are, golf and I think football as well.
Which has a lot of, Well, like, okay, here's a white space nobody has gone into. The country has certain natural endowments, but there is no corporate in that space. And when I say no corporate, is because I believe corporates are not just companies; they're actually corporate citizens. So the same way you and I live in Nairobi, there are things we want of Nairobi. There are things we want to see better in Nairobi, and there are things you do to make your space better. I think corporates also should be able to use not just their financial resources, but also their convening power to make their communities, their environments better. So with that convening power, or rather, when I say convening power is to say, by setting up the Loop Safari Gravel Race Series and setting it up the way we have, that's good exercise of our convening power. We're able to get thousands of people, hundreds of people to come to one place and enjoy their sport together. Yeah.
All right. And the first edition, you had an impressive entry of over 1,500 professional, amateur, and leisure cyclists. And you had the first series had 4 editions, right?
Yes.
At Tatu City, Iten, Naivasha, and Kilifi.
Yes.
How does this compare with this year's edition? Because I know this year you've had it at Tatu City and recently at Machakos. And I noted that there was a switch between Iten and Machakos. Is it because Iten is known for running and not for...
So first, we're very grateful to the 1,500 that showed up to the Loop Safari series last year. It was our inaugural series, first year. We didn't know what to expect. So I recall the first event was on a Sunday. The Saturday before, I went to the site to just see what they've set up. And we I believed we had set up for more than we would expect. It was our first event. It's the first time the brand is going out. So we actually, I wouldn't say we were overwhelmed, but everything we had set up was used up. So it was quite an endorsement. Again, I've been going to cycling events. Getting 100 people at an event in Kenya before Loop Safari Gravel Series it never was the case. 50, 70, 100, that was the number. So to have had, I think the first event we had about just shy of 500 people. Participants, not spectators.
Not spectators. Okay.
Participants on the starting line.
Wow.
That was quite impressive. We believed we'll have something like 300, and we thought that's a stretch goal. So we're quite happy to see that we're able to get 500 people. Moved to Iten, moved to Naivasha. Naivasha was our first year. And in our first year, I would say thanks to our partners, Amani, we were able to get, and the Cycling Federation, of course, the UCI, which is essentially the governing body for cycling, picked the Naivasha leg of the Loop Safari Series as a UCI qualifier event, the only gravel event in Africa that you can qualify for and earn UCI points. So that was quite an endorsement. And the great thing with that is international pro athletes looking for qualifying points to go for the UCI World Cup showed up with about 70 pros checking in and giving our local athletes an opportunity to just measure up with this. This is where we are going, or we want to go as a country. This is where we think we can win as a country on gravel and not on road. How do we measure up with the pros? So it was quite something. How will this year play out? I think this year we are set to exceed last year. This year's event in Tatu, if I remember the numbers right, we had about 780 participants.
That's an addition of over 200 participants from last year's.
Yes, 280, just shy of 300.
Wow.
Machakos had 340.
How does that compare to Iten?
Iten had 120. Now, Iten, why we switched again, you asked a question. Logistically, Iten was a struggle to most participants, and they told us so.
But it's quite far off.
Yes, Iten is also the home of our partner team, Amani. So they actually have their training camp at Iten. So that was more of a homage to them. So we had to make a decision where this is the home of the Amani team, but participants are struggling to get there. Logistically, it was difficult, expensive. So we then looked for an alternative venue. And actually, we just looked at our customers. Interestingly, we are winning. Loop is winning in Machakos. We have quite a number of customers in Machakos. So we're like, okay, take the event to where the customers are. And proved to be quite a success. The feedback we're getting, a lot of people loved it for being accessible. Some who went and spent the night, others went and came back in the evening. So that Machakos seems like a location we're going to stay. So that brings us to just shy of 1,200. With 2 events and 2 more to go. Wow. So I expect us to exceed next year.
Yes, you most definitely will surpass the number for last year because, and I know that Naivasha being the qualifier edition, there is going to be quite a number of cyclists signing up. Yeah. And I think you've already touched on what I was going to ask you about the different ways in which Loop is elevating the Kenya's profile of cycling as a cycling destination. And you talked about the professional cyclists who came for qualifying for you call it the ICE? UCI, I almost said UCI. Right. In which other ways is Loop elevating cycling as a sport in Kenya?
So I would say actually primarily it's through the platform we've created, the Safari Gravel Race Series. And our approach is not to do many small things, but actually to try and do one thing as best as we can and then build an ecosystem around that. So we are seeing more of our cyclists who, when you look at our registrations, there's many more cyclists registering as members of clubs and not as individuals. So it's not just that the numbers are going up, but also we can see clubs are getting more participants. And it's an important thing. Any sport, any country that does well in a particular sport is because the grassroots structures are there.
Yes,
and with cycling, the structures really has to start with the clubs. It is the clubs. Anywhere where cycling is winning or any sport. We are looking to see the series actually get owned more by the clubs. The other way we're doing is around that ecosystem. We have been approached and have supported merchants that are in the industry, guys who sell bikes, guys who are running, mechanics for bikes, guys who are organizing, who are guides for cycling tours. So they're not just loop merchants, but we are also now offering them financial solutions and helping promote them to the cycling community. You said we don't talk about work.
No, I was actually going to ask, and it's good that you've gone there, because one of the things that I have personally experienced is that bikes are not cheap.
Yes.
And the biking gear, and I think any sport, because even with running, it's the same. We think that running is the most, has the least barriers to entry, but wait until you start buying the shoes and then you realize that it's an expensive sport. So for cycling, it is an expensive sport, buying the gear, buying the, the whole gear. And we're talking about high quality bikes because, it's a gravel series, you're not cycling on the tarmac. Is there a way that, apart from working with the merchants, that Loop is addressing this? Probably, do you have like a facility that cyclists can be able to tap into?
Yeah, so let me again extend the definition of what is Loop. So it's digital platform is a technical term for it, but the brand Loop is actually a lifestyle brand. We don't want to be known for payments and savings and credit, which we do very well. I encourage anyone to try it out. But Loop is actually a lifestyle brand. So even when we are enabling credit, for example, our approach is lifestyle. Some of the features you will see on Loop, it's true, bikes are not cheap. And also acknowledging these levels. I've seen these levels. You can get a really decent bike for 70, 80, 100,000, but you will still be on the starting line with somebody who spent north of 500,000 on a bicycle. But to each his own. But what we do at Loop, one, you can save for it. We have Loop goals. Now, with Loop goals, you actually even set what you're saving for. And we drive and help you with an engagement to help you save, because we now know Jerry is saving for a bike. You said you want to set aside an amount per week, per month. So we're digitally engaging you to ensure that you're hitting your goals. We are also a lender, and a really good lender. Good in the sense, your credit journey is 100% digital. There is not a single piece of form. Digital credit on Loop is in 4 forms. You have an overdraft. You have a 30-day loan, similar to Mshwari and Fuliza, which we also run. You have a buy now, pay later, which we call Loop Flex, up to, I think you can go up, is it 6 or 12, from 6 months, but can go up to 12 months. And then you have a Loop term loan, which can go up to 3, starts at 3 years, actually. Now, if you're saving for your bike on Loop goals, we're helping you save, if saving is the route that you want to take. If you choose the route of credit, Loop Flex, which is a buy now, pay later, helps you pick a bike, pay your deposit, and commit to a repayment plan, which can be 6 months. We also have Loop Discover, where some of our bike merchants who have deals on some of their products are publishing their deals. So if a merchant is trying to push a particular bike model, let's say it costs 100K and they want to offer it on discount. If they offer it at a 10 or 20% discount, they will publish that deal on Loop Discover. So Loop Discover is specifically, it's not just an e-commerce site. We're actually not doing e-commerce. We're just a deals marketplace. So Loop merchants are able to publish deals on Loop. And I hope in that way you can see the lifestyle positioning
aspects
where,
of it,
yes, there is savings, yes, there is payments, yes, there is credit, but the approach that we come at it with is from a lifestyle perspective.
Okay.
So it's of course, we're talking about cycling, but almost any other, whether it's shoes that you want to buy, you can save for them, you can pay them on credit, you can take a 30-day loan. And these tools, why we have all these different forms of credit, is because your need for credit is different, not just from person to person, but also from time to time. So you want to take this pair of shoes, you have just about enough, but you'll have enough in 2 weeks. So you don't need to wait for 2 weeks. Take a 30-day loan, and you have 30 days to pay the difference. Or you want to make the payment, you will pull funds from somewhere else later. You can overdraw your Loop account and pay for the shoes. Or what is most popular is actually Loop Flex, where you just say, okay, I have this larger purchase. And it's not just shoes and cycling, it's TVs, it's appliances, it's furniture, it's anything that you want to pay on
related.
Exactly.
Right. Okay,
exactly.
Great. So circling back to cycling, what will it take to foster a vibrant cycling culture? Now, here I'm cognizant of the fact that cycling generally on our roads is very dangerous. Actually, one of the initiatives that is being run by our cycling community that I follow very closely because of the work that they're doing in this space is advocating for cycling lanes, dedicated cycling lanes. And I think those are some of the things that sort of discourage people because they're like, if I can't go cycle in Karura, where else do I go and cycle? What will it take for us to have a cycling culture?
So I think, again, to use more puns from cycling, if you see how a peloton moves, the strongest riders are at the front, but they can only push for so long and they circle out and someone else comes to the front and does the work. So one is to say that it takes all of us to do our bit when you're at the front of the peloton. So what we're doing with as a brand is to say, okay, let's create this platform and attract people. But the message we are consistently putting out is join a club. Joining clubs, one, has the benefit of giving you information, has the benefit of safety, has the benefit of, when we say information, I mean information about where to find a bike, who's a good bike mechanic, where to ride, some structure to your cycling activity. So as a brand, creating this platform and socializing more and more people to join clubs, finding ways to work with the clubs and support them. And we are actually thinking and are happy to receive ideas of how these clubs will want to look to be more a part of their organizing efforts to whatever activities they want to do. We are a brand that actually wants to hear, we want to engage with the community. So I think clubs are really an important way of how the sport will grow, both. And in these clubs, you'll find, like some clubs we've seen have people who are there to train and compete. Okay, and there's also people who are there to just enjoy as cycling enthusiasts. Yes. So the clubs then have structure for both the athletes that are training to compete and also you and I who just wants to enjoy the weekend and stay fit. So clubs are an important part. I think everyone who has access to and is channeling their energy towards advocating for governments to be more concerned about other forms of transport. We all don't drive. There's people who walk, there's people who cycle, creating cycling lanes, and very importantly, keeping the borders out of those cycling lanes.
Yes.
Yeah, because once you create it, the borders come into it, and it's a disaster for everyone.
That's true.
But actually, again, also find a way of getting the people who make these decisions into cycling. That is how
the biggest advocates for it.
Then they don't just become advocates. I think just like I have, being in the sport, I actually see it more clearly. I'm able to see how to have greater impact. So the more we get these people, so instead of fighting them, let's actually bring them in, let's embrace them, let them Let's make them a part of us. Yeah.
Okay.
I think also cycling and running, these are two very important communities. We have a lot in common. You want safer places to run. You want more paved roads. You go to Nairobi, not all of our roads are paved.
And also green spaces. And I love that one of the initiatives that you do as part of the series is planting trees.
Exactly. So planting trees, but let's appreciate, we all don't have the time to go to Karura every day, but you might want to run every day. If the roads around your neighborhood are paved, I've seen it in Kilimani, I've seen it on Riverside. The minute the roads are paved better, you see more people running, more people choosing to walk as opposed to get onto public transport. So just paving our roads, keeping the lights, street lights on. These things are very impactful, and we have to keep advocating for that.
Yeah. I think when you were talking about that, the club that came to mind that has really done a lot in the space, and I think I talked about them briefly, but I hadn't mentioned them, they're called Critical Mass.
Yes.
And I love the fact that they are not targeted at professional cyclists. Theirs is anyone who wants. Actually, they even have sessions where someone who doesn't know how to cycle can go for sessions. But what I love is that they do their cycling from the capital city, and they have days when they coordinate with the Kenya Police Force and the county government of Nairobi that they're allowed to cycle within the city. And I think it does very good to advocate for, and they also do that, advocating for more cycling. And I think they even have Critical Toto where they have children coming in and doing that, which in this day and age where all our children want to just be on devices is really important.
No, big up to them. I think they've done a great job. I think Critical Mass is actually a global movement. It's not just a club in Nairobi. The idea is to socialize the idea of cycling as a mode of transport and making non-cyclists aware of cyclists.
Yes.
I'll tell you, people who drive don't see cyclists.
They don't see cycling.
Or when they see you there, they don't see that you should be on the road.
Yes.
But actually our Traffic Act permits or recognizes cycling as a form of transport. So they're doing a great job. I've attended a few. I actually got my daughter more into cycling by doing a Critical Mass with her when she was quite young.
All right.
There's various initiatives that I've seen different groups do, and I would say just keep doing. Just keep cycling or keep pedaling, because these initiatives at times get frustrated, but don't lose. I think the analogy I was using of the peloton. If you have gas, go to the front. If you're running out of gas, get someone else to come in. But let's keep moving forward.
And I love what Loop is doing and coming into this space. And because I believe that once you have more voices and speaking and advocating for this and creating awareness, will help the sport. Just coming back to the gravel cities as we wrap up, what are some of the unexpected outcomes that have come about from having the series that when you were planning, it wasn't even in your wildest imagination?
Interesting. Actually, one of the things our chief marketing officer came to tell me that she's needing to address is the brand is being known for cycling before it is known for our financial services.
Wow. Is that a good problem to have? That's
a very good problem to have because it means the community we sought to engage with have actually embraced us, meaning they've at least will give us audience to talk about the other things that we do or the things that we're really great at, and that's digital financial services. So that was interesting. What else? There was a very simple thing we introduced during the events post-ride where any club that has more than 10 persons participating gets a whole mbuzi.
Yes, I was there for... That was this year. Did you have it last year?
We had it last year. It was not there on the first day. I think on the second, after E10 or at E10. And we realized that now that thing is no longer ours. The participants have embraced it. We have no opportunity to change it unless they tell us to change in ways that improve it. So it was quite interesting to see how that has taken on. But actually what we have now started observing very closely is a vibe is evolving. an identity is evolving around the Safari Race series, and we're quite keen to see how do we nurture that vibe. We want it to be organic. We don't want to be something that we are artificially creating. I want the community to embrace it and own it and be contribute to the development of that vibe. So I think it's what, yes, you'll say that's what we had hoped for, but actually it has surprised us in the sense that this has really been embraced by the audience we were looking to work with.
Wow, great. And then, on a vibey note, I think this year, I just wanted to mention that I think one of the ways in which we came in as Kenyan Poet Wellness was around bringing the vibe and sort of making it more community-based was the activations that we did. I don't know if you remember the placards, the pannies.
Yeah, that really caught me. I should have said that's again another unexpected. I saw it at the finish line. And at the start line.
At the start, yes, we had them at the start line.
Yes, I remember that one.
And then my team was on the ground.
Yeah.
Yes, and I think just speaking on that, because we had our team on the route, and I think one of the placards that really resonated with the cyclist was the one that we did, which was tongue-in-cheek on Usiguze Murima.
Yes.
Kama hauja change gear.
Yeah.
And there was also the one on... the secret to cycling is to love the hills. And one of the participants came to me at the village and told me that placard, I really resonated with that because I've always hated hills, and my friends have always told me the secret to cycling is loving hills. And when I saw that placard, I actually had to stop and take a photo with it. So that was a great feedback. And we were happy to partner with Loop on that, and just to see the engagement from the cycling community on the different ways that we choose to do storytelling. So
I guess we'll be seeing you in Naivasha then.
I hope so.
We'll want to continue working with you.
I hope so. And that's the next one that you will be happening.
14th of June.
All right.
In Naivasha. That's certainly going to be a vibe, and we are preparing well for that. And I think as we close, I just want to say to anyone out there, if physical wellness is your thing, if you care about living better, I bet you also care about financial wellness. I bet you care about having better tools for managing money. I bet you also care about lower cost of transacting. You care about access to good credit, access to good savings products. Certainly check out Loop for that.
All right. Yeah. Great. So thank you so much, Eric, for being here. I greatly appreciate you taking the time. You are a very busy person, and for you to create the time to be here, that has not gone unnoticed. And so I'm really appreciative for that. And I wish you all the best. I hope to see you in Naivasha.
Yes. We'll be
all right.
We'll be there.
Great.
Thank you.